All right, folks, I've got an interesting one here today. Um, I can already tell this is going to be kind of a long video to explain this thing, so please bear with me. But I'll do the best I can. What we have here is a phase linear Model 6000 audio delay unit. And this is a rather interesting beast. Originally, it was designed to make a stereo system into sort of a quad system, but what it did is added delay, reverb, echo effect to what would be rear channels and rear speakers in a four speaker sort of surround setup. And for the 70s and 80s, that was really cool, and honestly, it worked pretty good for that too. But as time went on, more of these ended up in studios because they do have a really versatile echo delay system in it. It's based on the world famous Redicon 1024s or whatever those things are called, analog bucket brigade delay lines. There's 4 of them in this thing. Those chips alone are worth quite a bit of money. It's found its way into studio use for guitars and vocals and down mixes and other sort of studio applications where you want to either add some interesting analog delay to your mix, or in some cases, like in some video production and movie editing, where you want to have that sound of say a disco beating, in a distant room, that you hear sort of just the echoes into the delays. It really works well for stuff like that. I'm going to try my best here. I had to study the manual and the service manual quite extensively to make sure I got my head wrapped around exactly what this thing is doing, because it's not very straightforward. But I'm going to do my best to explain this. All right. So the input to this is just a stereo 2-channel input, and then the output is a front and a rear channel. And the front is nothing more than a reproduction of the input channel. And so it's meant to just obviously come in, buffer it, and send it back out unmolested, unprocessed to your front channel. And then the rear channel is all of the processed audio that is intended to go to your rear channel speakers. What I've done is I've brought both the front and rear into this mixer so that I can sum them together so that you can hear the unprocessed and the processed audio, and then mixed together so you can kind of see what effect it would have if you were to use this in a studio environment on an audio mixer or an instrument or vocal. So stepping through, what are all the functions on this rather complicated interface? On the left here, we have the front volume, and it's also the power switch. And again, you just turn that up, and all that does is bring the front channel audio out to the front channels. And then this bottom knob here is called the rear, and that's obviously the level for the completely processed audio. Now, due to copyright laws and things like that, I can't really play any music or songs because the YouTube police are just going to mute it, and then that'll be no fun at all. So what I've got here is I'm just going to do a metronome, and then maybe later, if I think I can get away with it, I'll try to play a quick snippet of a song just so you can get an idea of what it does with music. But I'll turn on the metronome. Here's the unprocessed front channel, just normal unprocessed front channel. But here's the delayed channel. I got to turn it up a little. There's a little bit of hum in the system. I got a ground loop in this mixer somewhere, and it's really irritating, so I apologize for that. So that's the process signal. And then if you mix the two together, there's the metronome with the process signal. And I'm going to stop that for now, just so that we can go through the front panel operation. So what there is on this thing is there are actually two delay lines, two stereo delay lines, two sets for the left channel, two sets for the right channel. One is configured for 15 to 20 milliseconds, and then the second is configured for 60 to 90 milliseconds. And you choose whether you're running 15 and 60 or 20 and 90 respectively by this master clock. So in the fast mode, you're running 15 and 60 milliseconds for short and long delay. And in the slow mode, you're running 20 milliseconds and 90 milliseconds for the short and long delays. And then what you have in this front is the primary delay line outputs, and you can set the short and long for either -3 dB each, 0 dB each, or +3 dB each, or any combination you want of those 6 settings. And so if you want a quiet short delay but a loud long delay, you would do a -3 on the short and a +3 on the long, and you'd get a quieter short reverb or delay and a louder long delay. And so that's what these are, the primary delay lines, and basically the amplitude of that primary delay. Now, this thing also has a recirculation on it, and the interesting thing about the recirculation is if you look at the circuitry, what it does is it takes the right output of the short and long delays and feeds it into the left input to recirculate it. And so in that case, you get a ping pong effect. Of course, with stereo or mono sources, depending on how you configure this. And again, these 3 settings, -3, 0, or +3 for the short and long, are just the amplitude of that recirculation going back into the primary delay unit. And so if you want a lot of long delay and you want that to recirculate and ping pong, you would set +3 on the long delay, and you'd set +3 on the recirculation for the long, and it will recirculate that long into the opposite channel and ping pong back and forth until it eventually decays out. So very interesting way to configure this system so that you get the primary delay, you get the recirculation, and you get the ping pong effect. Now, the other probably less interesting thing, at least as I've found, is there's also a spring reverb unit in this thing. And you can feed the spring reverb from either the short delay line or the long delay line. And what this time is really just the amplitude. So when you set it for 1 second, it's the reverb is coming out at a low level. If you set it to 4 seconds, it's coming out at a much higher level. Now, what I found is, and also strangely, the reverb is only fed into one channel and not the other. And I think the reason they feel like they can get away with that is because at the absolute output of this thing, there's also a left minus right, right minus left amplifier that creates a sort of a spatial widening effect. And so at some level, you're not only you're getting all of the effects, you're getting it sort of spatially widened using the left minus right, right minus left tricks. And even though the reverb is only fed into one channel, because of that left minus right, you're kind of getting the anti-reverb in the other channel. But in execution and in listening to it, I'm not horribly impressed with it. So I try to set it to where I hear it the least. And in fact, arguably a person may just want to go inside this thing and just unplug it and not use it at all. But that's personal preference. You might find applications where the spring reverb in this thing works really cool and you like what it does. And then finally, on that rear output, You can set it so that it's broadband or high cut, low cut, or high and low cut. And this gives you some tonal shaping options for that rear channel or that effects output. And then again, this top switch here just gives you the option of just sort of testing your signals. So for that rear output, you can have, you know, just the delay, which would be the normal mode, but you can flip it back to non-delayed, which is just then the complete unprocessed signal. And just in case you wanted, like in the 4-channel setup in the original design of the 70s, if you just wanted to run stereo front, stereo rear, you would just turn it on non-delay if you had some material that you wanted to do that with. All right, so I'm going to, again, just use the metronome here just to kind of show you the different effects or the different settings that this thing has. I mean, I know this is really terrible trying to do this on a phone, but maybe you can get the idea. So there's the primary signal, unprocessed signal. Here's the effect signal. Got to turn it up a little. And you can hear that reverb in there. In this case, it's on the right side. So let me turn this up. So this is with -3 on the short delay and +3 on the long delay. Here is -3 on both the short and the long. And then there's +3 on the short and -3 on the long. I think it sounds kind of cool with the -3 on the short delay and the +3 on the long delay. And in this mode, I've got -3 on both the recirculations. Now, if I put this on +3 for the long, you can hear that the ping pong effect starts to get in there pretty strong on the long delay. And you can do the same, get the ping pong effect on the short delay. That's pretty much the operation of this. And you can play around with it. And then the frequency compensation, you know, there's the high cut, there's the high and low cut, there's the low cut, although with the metronome you're not going to hear much. And then if I mix back in some of the original, you can kind of get an idea of the original being mixed with the processed. And so again, I'll go through some of these. So -3, -3, +3 on the short delay, -3, +3 on the long delay, -3 on the short delay, +3 on the recirculation. And I'll put the reverb on the long delay, and you can kind of hear that reverb spring start to pick up. And of course, if I turn up to 4 seconds, which then just amplifies more of that reverb spring, you get that reverb spring pretty dominant on the right side, but you can hear a little bit on the left side. And so that's kind of the operation of that. So what I will do is I'm going to try and be sneaky here and show you what this does with a quick music snippet. Maybe YouTube will let this pass, but let's see what it does here. So that is the complete echo output. No unprocessed input. That's if I add the processed or the unprocessed input. But you can kind of hear that it's got that second room effect, like you're in the bathroom of a nightclub, right? You know, you went to the bathroom and you can hear the reverb and the bass thumping, but you don't hear the primary signal at all. And that's kind of what this thing does. And so as a cool 4-channel thing from the 70s to add a cool nightclub effect to your stereo, it's really cool. but also as a pretty unique studio tool to add different sorts of delays, stereo delays to some of your mixes or your EDM or guitars or vocals or whatever. It's a pretty unique tool for doing that as well. All right, thanks for bearing with me for 15 minutes. That is the Phase Linear Model 6000 audio delay system.